Good morning. I like a dummy, I pulled my my sermon notes out of my Bible early, and so now I got to find my spot again. So bear with me whilst I do that. Okay, I found it. Perfect. And where'd the thingy go? Anybody got the clicker? Oh, the clicker's in the back. I'm sorry. I would like to say, if you're visiting with us, we're usually a whole lot more organized than this, but that's not true. Yeah, that's not at all true. Okay, got the clicker. It is on. Oh, good, and the red battery light's blinking. Isn't that perfect? See, I told you, we don't know. It's amazing any of this happens ever. If it comes, she's going to change it. Perfect. It's amazing that any of this works at all. It's like I'm surprised every week. Anything, but anyway, so this morning, again, good morning, and welcome. And I'm so glad like I said earlier, I'm so glad you're here. At this point, it's when I like to say, I'm so glad you're still here. Because I know most of y'all can read. And so when you're looking at the bulletin and you see the sermon's getting closer, and the communion's the only part we got to do. So a lot of times, you got to scooch out. But no, I'm glad you're still here. So we have a few things that I prepared to say, and I want you to just bear with me. This first part is don't write any of this down. You can go back and look at it later. Listen to. Oh, thank you, sir. But just listen to this first part, because this is kind of a philosophical thing that I've been thinking about. I want to explain it, and it's hard to explain. So I say all that just because if you don't understand, at least I warned you. This morning we are going to be talking about thinking big about intentions. Okay. So when we're thinking big because all year we've been talking about thinking big about God, right? Thinking big about a relationship with God, thinking big about all all of that, because we live in a distraction-rich environment. Amen? I was having a talk with a guy in Madison, Wisconsin, a couple of weeks ago. And I was there for work. I don't want you to think I just went there for fun. But so he was an older generation, and he was lamenting how generations like my generation and then the ones below me and coming up, how they just they terrible with money, they can't save, and my day we did it like this and we did it like that. And I listened for a while, and then I was like, well, have you ever thought about it like this? Because I do that. Have you ever thought about it like this, though? Because let me tell you something. I'm a menace when it comes to debating. I mean, I'll drive you nuts. So I said, well, look, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, like when you were doing all this saving and all that, it was easier to save back then. Yeah, look at that. I knew I got the, oh, no, it was not. No, All right. How many cell phones could you buy back then? How many sweet kicks could you get back in the day? There was way more to spend money on now. Not saying that that's okay. I'm just saying there's more. You didn't have Starbucks. Yeah, we had coffee shops, but not like you do now. I mean, Ken, was there an $8 cup of coffee back in those days? No, there wasn't. Now, you were smart enough not to buy it even if there were, but what I'm saying is that we live in a distraction-riddled, opportunistic time. I mean, it is what it is. Doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean you shouldn't save. Doesn't mean we have an excuse. But what I am saying is that you got to look at things all kinds of ways and realize that it's not the same now as it was before. It's just not. And let me tell you something. I am so glad. I wish I would have raised my kids when my parents were raising me. I wish, but I'm glad I raised, I raised the majority of them. Isn't that when you have so many kids, you have to say the majority of them. Are you kidding me? But I raised the majority of them, in 90s, early 2000s when we did. Today, I weep for my daughter raising children now. I mean, with the TikToks and the Instaface and all the stuff and the phone. I mean, Grant, if you could just send a message, a secret message to your buddies back in the day, no matter what, no matter when, and your parents never knew about it, how bad could that have gotten? We were safe from many things. Yes, see? Now that, guys, you want to be an elder? Take notes. That's how you answer a question, right there. Yes, we're saved. But it's different. And it is hard, but it's a distraction-rich environment. So we got to think big about God, because God has got to take up our attention span. He just does, or it's too easy to get just so consumed by other than God. So we're thinking big about intentions, and this is a question that as the father of 4 daughters and 2 sons, when it comes to my daughters, this is a question I've had to ask a lot in my life. And I've got 2 daughters that are just they'll be 14 at the end of this month. Pray for me, please. 2 at the same time. And so I've asked many a gentleman, what are your intentions with my daughter? And we have to answer that question, because when you ask a boy, when it comes to your daughter, what your intentions are, you're trying to get to the bottom of, how much of this girl, this individual, are you interested in? I mean, men, how much are we interested in the whole experience, or we just got a one-track mind? This is still church, so I'm just trying to, I'm dancing on the minefield. But the question is, are you all in? Are you here for just one thing, or are you here for the intellect? The mind, body, and spirit, all that. What are your intentions? Are you worried about my daughter's salvation? Are you worried, hey, young man, are you concerned with her relationship with God? Or is it just, are you all in? When it comes to intentions, are you all in? Ooh, I didn't mean to do that. So here's a verse that is in Scripture, and it's all about our intentions. It's one that if you've ever been to your grandma's house, you've seen this crocheted or cross-stitched on a wall somewhere, this quote right here. He says, look, when Joshua was having this conversation, he says, now therefore fear the Lord and serve him sincerely and in all faithfulness. And then he said, put away the gods. Put away those gods of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the blah, 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 all these other people, right? And he says, put them all away and serve the Lord. Then he goes on to say, and if it's evil or detestable or uncomfortable in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether it's those gods or the God. He goes on, he says, choose today, this day, choose who you're going to serve, whether it's the gods of those other gods or Yahweh. But as for me and my house, now say this with me, as for me and my house, is that so? That's magic, Scott. Yeah, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I mean, you've seen it on above the kitchen table. You've seen it, whatever. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So my question is, what does that look like? what does it look like to serve the Lord? It has everything to do with our intentions. Are we all in? It has everything to do with what we are expecting to give and what we're expecting to get back, right? So what we're going to do, the first part of this, I'm going to go as quickly as I can without it getting too bumpy. What does it mean to serve Lord? Now remember what I told you, so be ready. You're going to have to pay attention. I'm just saying, because you never know when it's coming. I'm going to call on Caden to answer some questions here in a minute, so he's going to have to have his head on a swivel. And I warned him in class that I was calling on him. Okay, here's the thing. When it comes to us as humanity, as a species, as an animal on this planet, we have observed enough of the world to where we understand, like DNA and the building blocks of life, right? We've observed enough and advanced as a species enough to where we can observe the natural world and we understand DNA and that sort of thing. And then when you start to look at other animals, you see the similarities in that DNA, in the building blocks of life. Now there's a video that's going around on the interweb now, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's of two babies growing at the same time. One's a dolphin and one's a human. Anybody seen this? Okay, and it's so freakily similar. They look so similar when they're just like little embryos or whatever. And then they grow, and then one obviously grows a big weird tail, and then the other one is a person. And so there's a lot of similarities there, and a lot development and growth. And then there's some animals where like what, chimpanzees? What do we as people we share like what, 90-something% of the same DNA? As you might know that number. I mean, it's a lot. It's weirdly close. And then you see how animals are so smart, and scientists believe that crows can learn. They're on like a 7-year-old. They're like a 7-year-old. They know that much, right? And then all these animals, and they're so smart, and people want to compare them to people, and you think, well, are they really that close to us? I mean, are they really that similar? I mean, chimpanzees are smart, but do they have a digital record of their own ancestry going back thousands of years? I mean, how really similar to us are they? I mean, have you ever seen, chickens can count to 10. Well, can they build a computer? I mean, so, yeah, we're real close in building blocks of life, but, I mean, worlds different apart, correct? Think about us and the difference between us and chimpanzees, okay? Now, think about, is the difference between us and God in His intellect, His understanding, it's like, here's the question, like Paige over here knows how to drive a car. She has not the first clue how to build a car. Now, but we have Eli he said, I could build a car. Well, we came to the realization that if he had unlimited funds and whatever, he could probably build a pretty nice go-kart. But he's not building an Escalade, all right? Now, we understand our little ability to understand the world, right? And God built the universe. All of the laws and things that we observe, all the natural world that we just observe, He wrote that and put it in play. Okay, so, all right, so now, think about the difference between us and chimps and then us and God. Is it at least, is the difference between us and God at least the same as there is between us and animals? Or would it be way, way more? Do we all think pretty much way more? So, our understanding of God. I mean, we can look around at the natural world. We can read, the words that were left for us, that were disseminated down from generation to generation, describing, all this. But So if our understanding of God, if the gap between our understanding is that much different, what would you think of two chimpanzees fighting over who the humans liked the most? How ludicrous would that be? Yet generation after generation after generation of war, we go to war with each other in the name of a God we probably understand about that much. I mean, we blow people up over God likes us. I mean, are you kidding me? So what does it mean to serve that God? I think the first thing we have to do is be utterly and absolutely, ridiculously humbled before him. Choose you this day, but we will serve the Lord. I mean, we went through a list of things this morning of what it means to serve the Lord. We're praying, singing, meditating, representing the kingdom. All those, all the good church explanations that you would expect. But until we honestly, each one on an individual level, are so utterly and absolutely, unequivocally, all the other words that I can think of, until we are that kind of humbled before God, I don't think we understand what serve God means. And I'm positive we don't know how to. Because when we try to get to that, and there's all these things that he's put in place to put us at that. Remember, we just sang about we place you at the highest place and all that, and also about there are so many tools that he's given us to get us to that ridiculously humbled place. Fasting, meditation, prayer, simplicity, solitude, all the disciplines. All those disciplines, they get us into a position where we can be utterly and absolutely humbled by God. And that has to take place. Humility when it comes to serving, humility when it comes to being before God has to happen so that we can serve, because there are other gods. He says, choose you today who you will serve. Whether it's this God, that God, those God. But understand, now, we talk about God, you're the only God, and we know that. We know that intellectually. We know that, he is the only true and living God. We say that. He is the only God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is the Father of Jesus, the God the Father. We know that intellectually. But do we know that truly? Do we live that? Because realize there are other gods. There are other gods. What is it that motivates? What do you find yourself thinking about throughout the day? What motivates you to do the things that you do? What motivates you to save money? What motivates you to spend money? What motivates you to talk to people? What is it that motivates you to not talk to people? Whatever it is that motivates you, whatever it is that captures your attention, those are other gods. Those are, that's what he's talking about. Because, now in this case, they're like literal graven images. You take this thing right here and you take a piece of wood and you carve it, this is my God. You say that, and then I attribute all, I anthropomorphize all these things about this thing I made, and so I'm motivated by, whatever I've determined the God's going to do or not do to me or for me based on what I do. That's kind of how it works, right? What motivates you? Is it your family? Career? What is it that motivates? Because there are other gods. And I know so many people who spend so much money and so much time and so much effort and so much this and that, putting their world all around family time. oh, we do all this so that we have this to do, family time. And so one of the things that we can do is we can take good things and turn them into a god and serve that because we're motivated by those things. And it all comes back to whether, because my family is a reflection of me. And you see what I'm saying? So what motivates you? Because there are other gods. Beware. There are other gods. And just because we say you're the only God doesn't mean that that's what we really believe. So beware. There are other gods. The other thing is serving God based on what he said. Now, this is Scripture. Serving God is not always desirable in our flesh, is it? He says, look, if you find serving God to be detestable, if you find it to be uncomfortable, if you find it to be undesirable, is what it's how that's translated in the NIV. If you find it, then fine. If it's so undesirable to you, so that leads me to believe that there must be some times when it's possible for me to not like this. Am I the only one? Am I the only one that wrestles in my flesh about what I know is God glorifying and what I really want to do in the moment? Is that just me? I mean, because sometimes I will tell you, and I don't mind, well, I do mind because I mind that it's the truth, but there are times, I mean, your preacher, understand this, you pay me to say these things. Your preacher sometimes has a hard time liking serving God because there's this flesh I wrestle with. There's this, and I know, I mean, I do things that are not glorifying to God, and every time I know it's not. And every time I tell myself, no, because we know what we're planning on. We know what we're walking towards. And do you have that same little voice that says, when you say, oh, no, I'm not gonna. And then that little voice says, dude, tell yourself whatever you want to. You're gonna. Is that just me? Sometimes, I mean, it's not. Can we confess that? Can we confess God in my flesh? I mean, I think that's what Paul was saying when he says, look, I had this thorn in my flesh. And he's saying, I'm asking God, please take this away. And he doesn't. He's not taking away our fallenness. I mean, one day he will. On that day. You've heard of that day. When all the cloud, on that day he will take away our fallenness. But until then, we're in a war. And it's not with ISIS. It's not with Hamas. It's not with any of the other rulers or principalities. But we're in a spiritual war. And the battleground is in here. And our flesh is where that's fighting. So it's not always going to be desirable. And so you have to ask you have to answer the very important question, would you rather be motivated or would you rather be disciplined? Now, I asked this question in class, and Caden, the athlete, the football star, he said, I would rather be motivated. And I said, I'm glad you said that, because when you say the wrong answer, that makes my point. Because, one thing that's important about football is going to practice. And we're talking about practice. And he's not always motivated to go to practice, is he, Dad? No. But he's disciplined to go to practice. Because here's the thing, when motivation's not there, discipline's all we have to count on. That's why I believe in scriptures don't tell us about spiritual motivations. It tells us about spiritual disciplines. Because when that motivation fails, then we have to be disciplined, because the reality is we have a choice to make. He says, choose you this day. I'm so sorry that keeps yelling at you. He says, choose you this day. And you know what this day is? Every day. Every day. He says, choose you this day, and every day is this day because we have to make that choice on a daily basis on who we're going to serve. Is it all the distractions out there? Is it all the other possibilities for our time and our attention and our money and our love and all of those things and our motivations and all that? Is it going to be all that, or is it going to be the God who made all of this and has revealed himself to us so that we can reveal him to the world? So the reality is that we have a choice to make. And it's not a one and done. It's not something that we just do and then I got that taken care of and you know, now I can on to bigger and better things. He said, choose you this day. Choose today who you will serve. Who will you be absolutely humbled by, amazed by, awed by, to where it provokes all of our interest, all of our curiosity, all of our, see, that's one thing that you know, my personality, and I've passed this on to my boys especially, is this weird obsessive curiosity where we'll get onto something and man, we got to learn about that. Hayden was talking to me the other day about this amazing documentary that he has watched and then spent time researching about barnacles. I mean, he went down a YouTube barnacle rabbit hole, but that grabbed his attention. Does God do that? Are we thinking big enough about God to where he just pulls us into these rabbit holes? Because we have a choice. So I hope that you think about the difference between us and God all week. And I want to warn you, be careful. Be careful because there's bigness out there to think about. And it gets a little shaky sometimes because the more we're thinking big about God, the more we realize we can't get our arms around it. And it's scary. It's scary. But the good news is the songs that we sing are true. He will rejoice over us. He will bridge that gap with his love for us. So my challenge is today, choose you this day whom you will serve while you stand and while we sing.